Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the show. We've had a break, although we did do a stream last week, but Pat weren't on. But we've had a bit of a break, our summer break. And what can I say? Deborah Abrams, another really colourful leaflet about Labour. So she's already done a postal vote leaflet, and now she's done this leaflet. The amount of resources and money for her to send 80,000 leaflets like that is just unbelievable. But what's going on? What's going on in the country? Farage, fake Farage is causing more waves, and he's absolutely been detested by the lefties. Everything you see on Twitter is just an attack on him. There's nobody says anything like with stats or anything like that. They're just all calling him the buzzword. And you know what? It's fucking working for Farage. Sorry to say the language there. But the Workers' Party is spreading out. The Workers' Party, they have put the bullseye on Angela Rayner's seat in Ashton. And they are going for it. So Gorgeous George is getting ready, he's bouncing around, he's throwing the odd fake and all that, he's getting into position. Gorgeous
Game on.
fell away there. Also, across the country, Labour MPs, they're really pumping up the social media. Some of them Labour MPs must be really canning the crackers, as well as the Tories. The Tories are definitely going down the drain this year. And I just want to bring you back. I said this last year. I said this last week. 4 years ago, the mighty Pat McGinnis, who is on this stream now, went like, John, the winds are changing. Things are going to change. Do you agree? Yes, I agree. And it's starting now, ladies and gentlemen. And it's starting now. So what's going on, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, this election, this general election on the 4th of July is probably the most exciting general election this country has ever seen in a lifetime, because things are falling apart for the establishment. They're becoming desperate. Rishi Sunak is just getting worse and worse. And it's a joy to watch, you know, because Starmer's struggling there as well. And, you know, Nigel Farage, don't like Nigel Farage, but he's stepped into the fight. And, you know, this could bring out all the Brexit voters. You know, already Sadiq Khan is hinting that a Labour victory would take us back into the EU. Now, this kind of language is going to bring the Brexiteers out, and they're going to go towards Farage. So this could be just a miracle happening. Who knows what's going to happen? National Housing Party are not contesting any parliamentary seats because, you know, we're too small, and we made a commitment a while ago that we're not going to take part. You know, there is a lot of smaller parties taking part, and I think it's a mistake that they've done that. For example, you've got Heritage Party. They're standing 41 candidates, right? And, you know, it's £500 for a deposit, right? So that's £20,000 already there. 25. They're going to lose that. They're going to lose all their deposits. That's my prediction. They've spent probably another £500 each on their leaflet. So double that. That's £40,000 they will have spent on this election, let alone all the train fares and petrol and everyone trying to get to the place to help them campaign for whatever seat they're contesting. And at the end of the day, so that people say, oh yeah, we get a free leaflet drop in the constituency, yeah. So there might be 10 local election wards within that constituency, and it's going to get a leaflet. Most of those wards, they're not going to be standing a candidate again in. So in my opinion, it's a big waste. And I'm just using Heritage as an example because they're standing 41 candidates. You know, I might be wrong, but from my experience, I think it's a waste of time for the smaller parties. Reform up in the polls are in front of Conservatives, and I will be happy if Reform destroy the Tories. However, I don't like Reform. I don't like Nigel Farage. He's part of the establishment. He's part of the anti-white agenda. You know, he's complaining today or yesterday that this company who they paid hundreds of thousands of pounds to hunt down people on the internet who have had wrongthink. You know, it's like a communist state, and Farage is part of it. He's instigating it to hunt these people down who've said liked the wrong thing on Facebook and Twitter. And this is the politically correct agenda, which means the anti-white agenda. So, but I'll reiterate, I want Reform to destroy the Tories. Over to you, Paul.
The times they are a-changing. I mean, you know, I'm the opposite of Pat. I'm really glad that Farage has entered this fight. I think he's a breath of fresh air. And I think that the power of Farage is the army behind him. It's like Trump with his MAGA army. Farage has got the people's army. I mean, I was involved in UKIP for a time, stood as a candidate. I released a video when he formed the Brexit Party and said it's like an atom bomb going off on British politics. And it got 65,000 hits, still available on my YouTube channel. And everything I predicted then, when he formed the Brexit Party, I said he would win the Euro elections, which he did. In 6 weeks, the Brexit Party went from naught to first place in the Euro elections in June 2019. And he pushed out Theresa May. So his impact on British politics is extraordinary. There's no one since Margaret Thatcher who's had this sort of impact on British politics. Maybe Tony Blair, yeah, but Tony Blair was a phony, as we know. But and he was also an insider. I mean, Farage is an outsider. He's not in the main three, the Liberal AdCon. They think they've got politics sewn up between them. We know that the House of Commons is a house of traitors. Apart from Andrew Bridgen and maybe one or two others, George Galloway, there's no independent voices in the House of Commons. They're just globalists, just doing the work of the World Economic Forum. They're just basically destroying Britain. Now, Farage, one of the really important things he said is that he's in this election because he wants to support Trump. Trump gets in America to end this madness in the Ukraine. Trump has he's again recommitted that he will stop all American aid to Zelensky and he will create an immediate truce in the Ukrainian war. That is so important. Nearly 500,000 Europeans have died in this futile war in the Ukraine, which is a NATO war. And Farage has said he will help Trump to end this war. And that is so important. But I mean, not only that, he is destroying the Tory party. And he's the only one who would have been able to do that. Without Farage, we'd have been left really with the choice of Sunak or Starmer. Now, Sunak is history. Who wanted to vote for a Hindu, an Indian, to be Prime Minister of Britain? He's not British. He's not got a drop of British blood in his veins. He's only here because it's a vehicle for his own self-improvement, his own family's improvement. He's always wanted to go and live in California. His commitment is to India. It's not to Britain. He doesn't care how many illegal immigrants or legal immigrants enter this nation, how rapidly the British are replaced by people from the third world. That doesn't bother Rishi Sunak in the least. It's all a pretense. All this, you know, send them to Rwanda rigmarole. It's never got off the ground. The way to stop these boats is simply to stop the boats, to stand up for them, sending them over. We need a prime minister with backbone. Now, Farage has said he will take it out to the European Court of Human Rights. It's a big step. That's a massive step in the right direction. But we in the National Housing Party want to go further. We want to go to the root of the problem, which is the United Nations Refugee Convention of 1951, which gives these bogus asylum seekers the right to enter our country and to acquire rights which are greater than the citizens of our country. It's an open door to endless invasion of Britain. Now, the European Court of Human Rights is there to back that up. But Farage, if he ever did get in number 10, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's improbable still. But he's still, what Farage will probably do is deny Labour a big majority, may cause a hung parliament, because at the moment, Reform UK, well, according to the Salvation poll, are ahead in 7 seats. I would say they're probably ahead in 14 seats. But in second place in 134 seats to Labour, not to the Tories. The Tories are in third place in many of the seats that they held. Now, Farage is within striking distance of Labour in 134 seats. When I say striking distance, within 10 percentage points. So given that he's got momentum in his campaign, that Reform is growing daily. It's gone from 12,000 members when the election was called. It went up to 20,000. Farage joined. It went up to 30,000. It went up to 40,000 in a week. It went up to 50,000. It's going to be 60,000 members by next Monday. By the time of the general election, there may well be 100,000 members in Reform. That's a real organised people's army. That can have a massive impact. Those people put up their posters, poster leaflets, make their presence felt in constituencies. They can win these constituencies because a lot of them are Tory strongholds. The Tories have collapsed. Labour have got into first place, but Reform's right behind them. So it's like virgin territory. It's not the normal electoral politics. Everything's up in the air at the moment, and that's for one reason and one reason only, because Nigel Farage decided to stand. Now, I saw him get interviewed this morning on Good Morning Television by that guy, Ed Balls, used to be the Labour Chancellor of the Exchequer, and the other one. And they basically just give him one really nasty, hard time. But he's a professional, and he persevered and he overcome. The media now will attack Farage relentlessly. Why? Because what Farage has done is he's rallied the Patriots to this country. He's given them a figure that they can rally behind. And I can feel the spirit rising. Now, you might have sort of some criticisms of Farage, legitimate criticisms, but you've got to seize the moment. And the moment is now. And this is a unique opportunity to transform Britain, to break the Lib-Lab con. It's an opportunity that only comes once in a generation. And we have to seize it. Therefore, I get behind Farage completely. National Housing Party is not in this general election, but it will be to our great advantage in the future if the Lib-Lab con is broken. Steve, what do you think? Steve,
well, my friend, I can indeed. Yeah. So first of all, sorry about my internet connections. I thought it'd be really good if I had a proper setup. I bought loads of mics, but there was too many different Bluetooth connections going on, so that all fell apart. So I've had to use my phone. But never mind. As long as you can hear me, that's all good. First of all, I would say that there's very many people that have been nationalists and patriots and in this for years that do share exactly the same sentiments. Now, look, I think you have to look at this sort of retrospectively. But when you're looking at parties like Reform, ask yourself, are they actually diametrically opposed to the Conservatives, or are they actually more familiar? Is this real change? And look, there's some people, including myself, that find it very difficult to get over the fact that Nigel Farage has been mistreating nationalists for years. He's been awful about them. He's even bragged about them on national television, that he was the one that brought down this party and that party. And I find him very difficult to be likable. However, if you look at the Overton window in general, these are talking points from like 2016 that he wouldn't touch. So what you can notice in, some sort of social cohesion is the fact that these things are starting to be noticed about and being spoken about. Is it a bit too late? Are they way behind us? And to what extent does, if you look at things, for example, like Marxism, and they have things like they have methods and policies and ways to do things, right? Like, for example, why do you think this communist rhetoric is in our schools? It didn't happen suddenly. It happened really, really slowly through intricate methods, right? So once they do the long march through the institutions, we should socially, like as a cohesion, be looking to do the long march back. Now, whether you think reform is the answer or not is kind of neither here nor there. But what I will say is most people are expecting them to do very well, because we don't have like, if you look at the polling data, I think the last time I looked at it, like they were 15%, they overtaken the Lib Dems, but that doesn't mean that they're going to win more seats than them, because we don't have representative proportionate representation in this country. Sorry. So 15% of 650 seats isn't a great deal. So they might win 4, they might win 5. But the question you should ask yourself is how pertinent is that to the greater resistance, and what other parties can do later down the line and stuff. That's the way I sort of look at it.
You're on mute, John.
Well, Steve, you're exactly right. 5 years ago, a lot of the things being spoken about by a lot of people in politics right now would never have been spoken about. We were speaking about it and we was cancelled like mad, but now they are speaking. And you're exactly right. Farage has upped his game a bit and started mentioning things like integration, which he never mentioned before, and stuff like that. So, but you know, I just think it's all good that we do talk about these things. I just want to, Nick Wilson tells me that Hope Not Here have been bragging. They're doing leaflets in Rochdale against George Galloway. And, you know, like, fair enough, let them do it. But I don't think there'll be any white people posting leaflets in the Scotland area for Hope Not Here. I'll tell you that right now. So, you know, there's a upper against everyone. So it's not the mainstream parties are after, it's all the rest of the parties. Even though the mainstream parties are paedophiles, crooks, sex offenders, gangsters, women beaters, money launderers, but nothing's ever said about them. But yeah, it's exciting, guys. It really is exciting times. And the fact that I'm getting all these leaflets through door tells me that Deborah Abrams is canning of crackers. It's absolutely canning of crackers. And there's 3 candidates in Oldham putting up for Oldham East and Saddleworth. Nick Buckley's running. And he tells us he's running because that area voted twice as much as any other area for him in the mayor elections, because you can get this data, you can get all this data. The second place is Paul the Boots Eric, although I think Paul should be a CEO of the council and not an MP. I think he'd be better working within the council itself. And I've said this. And my third one was Sadiq, Shanaz Sadiq, Workers' Party. Them are the 3 candidates in Oldham East and Saddleworth. But I'm just glad that Labour, even if they win the government, they're going to lose votes, guys. People aren't reading it properly. They've lost thousands of votes, so they might get control of the government, but it'll only be on a thin string.
We're hoping for their own parliament, John. I mean, the thing is with the Labour Party, their polling numbers peaked to 47%. They're now under 35%. I mean, Steve just said about Reform being on 15%. Reform are really on 22% now. Well, Reform's strength is in a certain part of England. It's the North East, it's Yorkshire, it's the East Midlands, and it's the South East around London. It's in that area that they have this strong showing in 150 constituencies, strong enough to say that they can win 150 seats if they're properly organised. But you've got to remember with this election, it was a fix from the off. Rishi Sunak had already decided to hand the baton over to Keir Starmer. I mean, Andrew Bridgen said he didn't want to be a war leader. We are now in a war with Russia. and this is going to be, people are going to have to realize this. We are now sending troops and equipment and money to the Ukraine round the clock. We're fighting Russia, and this is going to become really big over the next 6 months. Not only that, we've got the economy. America is going into recession. The figures in America are all going down for employment, for retail spending, for investment. The interest rates have stayed high for too long. They're now starting to cripple the economy. If Labour, the idea was that to get Keir Starmer in with a huge majority, and Labour will rule the roost through the recession to kill off any social dissent. Farage has come in and he's put a spanner in the works. He's put a spanner in the works because he's mobilised the People's Army, the Patriots. I mean, I joined a group, a pro-reform group on Facebook, and it had 2,000 members 10 days ago. It's now got 45,000 members in 10 days. That had more than 2,000 members every single day. In fact, more closer to 5,000. And this is amazing. This is because there was such despondency in the Patriot camp. These smaller parties that you can talk about, like the British Democrats or Homeland or the Heritage Party was standing, they're irrelevant. They couldn't mobilise the British people. But Farage has this ability, he has this presence to mobilise the British people. Any criticism of Farage? Go on, Pat.
Paul, the reason he's got the power to mobilise is because he's part of the establishment. He's been accepted by the mainstream media. He's on GB News every day, which is a Zionist station, and he's proved his anti-white credentials by crashing the BNP. And you know, he's part of the establishment. That's why he's been allowed.
But hold on. With me and Farage, it's the fact that he's in politics and causing drafts and whatever Paul thinks. But that's why I like that he is in politics and cause just the same as George Galloway. They're both causing shockwaves across the political system. They're going to take votes off Tories and they're going to take votes off Labour. So no matter what you think of any candidate, that is a good, positive thing. I'm just saying, just want to get that in.
Can I just say, I think it's positive that it pushes the Overton window. But what I want you to think about is, Paul, for example, you said that he's, building the People's Army and that. Is he, or is he not just appealing to social frustration? Which and also if you think about the way that the voting system works, which has largely been fiddled with by the Conservative Party for a very long time, the reason we don't have proportionate representation and stuff, and it's very hard for smaller parties to get in. Is he sort of not the guy that, like, is he not a swing voter for the Tories to get less vote for Labour's, so that it actually, whether or not they win, it does kind of swing votes to the Tories?
Right, let me interrupt. Let me just get some. Thank you everyone in the chat for coming on. Dawn Browning, thank you. Johnny, not Paul MBE, thank you. Seen Nick Wilson there, Serena, Mark's on. Thank you very much. Big Vinny's there. Right. Just let me just say this one more time. The fact that George Galloway and Reform are running and all these, it means that I have to get less votes to get in. It gives a lot better chance for a lot of people, independents and small parties, to get local council seats because everything's falling apart. 3 years ago, I would definitely have to get well over 1,000 votes. This year, in the election coming in 2026, I'm looking at under 1,000. Positive. People are changing the voting thing. Labour are losing people because of George Galloway. The Tories are losing people because of Nigel Farage. Positive. This is what we want in politics. We just don't want it so red and blue. We want other colours in. We'll put George Galloway as the black. So we want more black in. We want more light blue reforming to take over. We want pale red in. We want all these groups to come in. And I hope that other groups such as Party of Women, Posey Parker's group does well. I just hope these groups do well because this is what we need, the change in politics. Forget who's thinking I have a seat, but that the change in politics now is good for me and good for local council seats. Let me just say.
Right, well, let me just say one more thing, right? We're all against cancel culture. All of the people on this panel here have been campaigning to prevent the indigenous population becoming a minority. There's around 100,000 patriots who are banned from joining Farage's party. And I just can't, I can't support that personally. I welcome what is happening. I welcome that reform have gone in to disrupt the LibLabCon system. I welcome George Galloway, the Workers' Party, going in because they're doing massive damage to the Labour Party. And, you know, where I live, the people on the list for the election where I live, Keir Starmer is on my list to vote for. Obviously, I'm not going to vote for him. I won't be voting for anyone. So I will put on the ballot paper, I stop immigration, right? Because Farage has famously always said that he wants more immigration. And I will be saying, stop permanent settlement immigration across my ballot paper, spoil the ballot. There's a guy called Andrew Feinstein. I think he's with the George Galloway clique. He's standing as an independent, and the Workers' Party are not standing in my constituency, which is good for me because I was a bit worried if they stood in my constituency that their name will get very familiar with the voters and they may stand in my local elections as well, which would be a problem for me. However, I'm happy what's going on. It's very exciting, but I do not endorse Farage. I don't tell people to join reform. Yes, vote for them to damage the Tories. Vote for, you know, the other parties to damage Labour. But people got to remember, we are banned from joining Farage's party, and that says a lot. And you know, I just want to remind people that that's all.
I think the point you missed, Pat, is that reform is exploding because of social media. It's not because of the establishment. It's because the establishment cannot control social media. See, what Farage has managed to do is change the issues of this election. Labour and the left wanted to fight this election on the issue of global warming, on the globalist agenda. Farage has made immigration centre stage. Now, he's come up with net zero. That would be a reduction in immigration of 600,000 a year. That would be difficult to achieve. It's a big step in the right direction. It's not what I want. I want to go further than that, but it's a great step in the right direction. We want an end to all permanent settler immigration. We don't need any more immigrants. We want an end to accepting refugees, not processing them offshore. We want to finish altogether. But everything Farage's doing is leading us in the right direction. And because it's not only about issues and election, but issues are very important because they expose people. Starmer's being exposed because Labour will not talk about immigration. Labour had an open goal to win this election. Farage has become the goalkeeper, and he's now pushing out the shots and he's counter-attacked. This is so important. But also, you need to educate the public, and you can only educate the public if you get the focus on the important issues. Immigration and our replacement. As John said, the whole language of politics is now being changed. We're talking about replacement immigration. We're talking, he said he's acting in defense of British values in Britain. If you look at all the memes, all the arguments that are being made by reform supporters on social media, the national arguments, the patriot arguments, and therefore this is rousing the people again. It's stirring them. It's inspiring them. It's educating them. This is so important. And it's an opportunity, as I say, that only comes once in a generation. You have to seize the moment. Now is the time. Forget the future. The future may not even come. We have nuclear war. We won't even have a future. We have to act now. We can't deliberate. We can't stay on the sideline. We've got to make our commitment now. Now, it's not only about education. It's not only about the issues. It's also about organizing people. You see, I've joined this group on Facebook, this reform group, 42,000. These people are getting together. They're getting together spontaneously. They're producing political literature themselves. They're campaigning themselves, independent of Farage. This is why it's a people's army, because it's motivated patriots to make their voices heard and to engage in a political process. We are part of that political process. It's not about us. It's about the salvation of Britain. And this is an opportunity you should not ignore. Everybody should join. Well, there's no wrong with joining in Reform, because it's a momentary thing. It's only 2.5 weeks to the general election. This could be all over in 2.5 weeks. It's important that you engage with what's happening now and make what's happening now the beginning of a tidal wave of change. Once we get control of the process, it's like a revolution. The establishment are no longer in control. The people are in control. We don't know where that process is going to go. It's not a mechanical process. It's not a controlled process. It's an explosion. Like any explosion, it can cause irreparable damage to the establishment. The Lib, Lab, Con are the same party. They've got the same ideology. They can interpret. A lot of the Tories have joined the Labour Party in the past. A lot of Lib Dems joined the Tories. They shuffle the pack. They're just one. This is the ruling class. This is the ruling political class, and it's having the carpet pulled from underneath them. What do they think of Farage? What did the political ruling class think of Farage? They hate his guts. You only have to listen to David Cameron or Alistair Campbell or Tony Blair, and they speak about him as if he's dirt on their shoes, because he's undermining them. They still haven't forgiven him for Brexit. Everything they're setting up, he's a threat to. The New World Order, he is a threat to them. Now, Farage is like Trump. He plays the establishment game. He won't cross lines because he knows there's red lines which you cannot cross if you want to be at the top table. You cannot cross them. I mean, you talk about Zionism stuff. If you want to attack Zionism, you're never going to get anywhere near any authority at this moment in time. That could change, though, with a revolution, a political unfolding revolution. The whole agenda, the whole language, as Steve said, the Overton window moves so quickly, and then the opportunities arise for real truth speakers. But Farage is the revolutionary in this situation. That's why I support him 100%. Steve?
Okay, so I'll get onto the Zionism thing a bit later. But first of all, what I want to point out is that when you're talking about revolution and stuff like that, often, and I mean, this is the very reason that I joined this party, is because often, people are disillusioned, they're disheartened about society in general, and they kind of don't believe in the voting system. But I sort of say, well, first of all, you need crisis for real change to happen. But what all of these parties lack is collective spiritual cohesion. So, for example, the reason that Labour holds on to like the Muslim vote is because all of them people have a social cohesion, and it's based on faith, because they all stick together in that sense, right? Whereas if people were to actually bring back faith into this nation and become a real unified Christian nation, then we could politically have social cohesion. Now, it doesn't matter how good your government is, right? If you don't have faith in a higher power and know that what is being governed isn't like, if you look, for example, all of the godless societies, like when you look at Maoist China, when you look at Vietnam, right, like the Khmer Rouge under Pol Pot and all that, these are all godless societies, and they didn't work out very well, did they? So I would say that there needs to be a restoration of faith, and I think that's a really important thing to promote, as opposed to tolerance for, to me personally, I don't think tolerance is a noble endeavour, because tolerance is putting up with something that you don't like, and that's been going on far too long in this country. It's been over represented, and people pushing it, going, no, you have to be tolerant. Why do I have to be tolerant of things that I don't like? So first of all, I think that's something that a lot of parties are missing. I think that's something that the main parties are missing in this country. Now, any government given the power to act, right, should, by the same process, just in the same way that like a CEO, if he's hired to do a job, all the shareholders will sack him if he isn't fit for purpose and doesn't do it. Whereas in this country, they're hired to do a job, and if they don't do it right, they stay in for a certain amount of time, and there's no thing to kick them out. Do you know that, mate? Like, and also there's loads of other ideas to look at, particularly when it comes to the voting system. You could even do it on like industry. So you could do like, if you have like the best engineers, they could all vote for the best engineer. If you have the best healthcare person, they could all vote for that. And then you get a collective committee of people. Then they could have parliamentary dealings. And then it would pertain to people with actual interest in their industry, as opposed to having health secretaries that aren't doctors, right? All that sort of stuff. So there's lots of ideas that aren't being spoken about. I feel very much like reform is keeping abreast the status quo. They're just appealing to social frustration, which is fine at the moment to appeal to social frustration, which is what they're very good at, and evidently it's working. So that's what I want to say on it.
Right. Let me get in. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Yes, Rory Herbert. So like Pat was saying a minute ago, the cancel culture. Now, you know, I'm not disagreeing with Pat. I'm not disagreeing. And let me bring this. Reform candidate resigned after it was discovered he previously encouraged people to vote for the far-right British National Party. Right now, Pat, have the British National Party ever been convicted of anything as a party?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
No. They've always been registered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, this is what Pat means. Just because he said something against a fully registered political party or fought a fully registered, is resigned and is left Reform. Now, I actually spoke to a Reform candidate Saturday with Darren, and we said exactly this to her, and she was shocked. She was shocked, you know, that like this has happened. Now, you know, I don't know the guy, Grant St. Clair, but he's a bit of a shithouse if he's just quit like that and not stuck up for himself. What you'll not get me doing this. I'll stick up for myself, whether I've been part of whatever organisation I will, and I'm not just gonna. But this is what we mean. So, you know, the British National Party, they were put down because it was rising up, and we've got to keep them put down. Established, got to keep them put down. So all the British National Party now is buzzwords. That's all people say is buzzwords to do with it. But it's just this kind of incident that it infuriates me. I know it infuriates Pat, Paul, everyone in this chat, and you know, and Reform. This is what Reform have done. This is how touchy Reform are. You know, you know what I mean. I'm speaking to Reform candidates, and I'm telling them, right, listen, if you speak to me to such a body or whatever else, you'll be cancelled. What? No, I won't. Yes, you will. Just through speaking to me. That's what I've said to them. You know what I mean?
Sure about that, John.
We've got to be careful, and obviously we have to look out for this sort of stuff, but it does happen, just as Pat said. This is cancel culture at its most effective by just saying a buzzword and they're gone. They resign and all that. We need people with a bit more like meat and potatoes in them. You know what I mean? We really do.
Well, in this election, we're getting a much more lively debate than we've had for a long time, and the issues are arising. But what I want to say, this is really important, is that within a revolutionary moment, we've just had the European elections. We've just had an incredible success for the National Rally in France, Marine Le Pen. And we've got a general election in France the same week as in Britain. The Front National or the National Rally are about to take government in France. Nigel Farage, Marine Le Pen. We've seen the AfD have survived and are now prospering again in Germany. This is a tidal wave of change across Western Europe. It's a unique moment. You've got to seize the moment. You can't just go back to like petty stuff or long-term issues. You've got to seize the moment. You've got to be part of the revolution. The revolution will determine the future. I don't think you quite grasp, guys, just how significant what is happening out there. The meltdown that's happening in British politics, French politics, German politics.
At the end of the day, there is something massive happening in France and in Germany. Now, in France, we could be in the same position here now with the BNP, but because of Farage, we're not, because he blocked the same thing. What is happening in France? He blocked it here. This is the man who blocked it. He would not join with Marine Le Pen in the European Parliament. She invited UKIP to join with all the AFD and all the other parties, Geert Wilders and all that. Farage wouldn't join because Farage sees her as an extremist, as he thinks that she shouldn't be in power. That's his attitude, and he's on GB News. He's all of a sudden, because these Muslims are attacking the Jews, he thinks that they should all be deported from our country. Where when the grooming gang scandal was happening and the BNP was pointing it out, he wasn't saying deport the Muslims. Then he was attacking the BNP. So I just got no time for the fella. I think he's anti-white. I think he's a traitor to this country, and he is basically the reason why we haven't got a genuine fight back in this country. That's my opinion on it.
Well,
no,
Pat, if you don't mind,
okay, go on. The past doesn't matter. We're in a moment now. It's now that matters. And who are the main actors now? Go on, Steve.
Yeah, but let me just say one more thing, right? So if Farage got into government, right, he has excluded 100,000 Patriots from being in that government. How can that be right, Paul?
No, the future doesn't matter, Pat. Neither does the past. It's the moment. You've got to seize the moment. You're either part of the revolution or you oppose it. If you stand against it, you make yourself.
I don't agree with excluding 100,000 Patriots from government.
Right.
That's not democracy.
The revolution happening. These things don't matter.
Yeah, that's not democracy, though.
Listen, the thing
I think they do.
What matters is Farage changing the debate? Is he changing the issues? Is the People's Army real? Are people starting to wake up and oppose themselves? The answer is yes, yes, yes. Marine Le Pen.
Yeah, but Paul, I think he's soft opposition.
Donald Trump. They're transformational figures. It's either you want to transform the present situation, or you just want to carve from the sidelines. That's the choice.
Yeah, but we want a Marine Le Pen. We don't want a Nigel Farage.
We haven't got Marine Le Pen. Alternative to Nigel Farage. Which alternative are you proposing, pal? Who are you proposing? Now is the moment.
But Farage destroyed it, and he brags about it.
No, I'm not interested in the past. I'm interested in the moment. Who is the alternative to Nigel Farage now? Where's Nick Griffin now? He's not here. We've got to go with the moment, with the flow of the present. You either seize the moment or you make yourself irrelevant. It's that simple. Go on, Steve.
Personally, I think at the moment, whilst people sing Nigel Farage's praises, I think he is the palatable opposition. I think he's soft opposition. I think he's allowed on the media because such an Overton window has spread through such a long amount of years that this has kind of been allowed to happen. Like all the Dover, the boats, all that sort of stuff has actually come from citizen journalists and actual activists that brought it to the news media's attention. Therefore, they then couldn't ignore it. It really all starts with the people. And once these ideas get out into the public domain, these are things that they now no longer can ignore. So whilst it's great to have faith in Nigel Farage and his characters, I do agree with Pat with the fact that he has excluded real nationalists from joining this movement, and I don't consider that nationalists. I consider that soft opposition, and I don't think it's anything to do with real change. I think it's soft opposition. I think they want to swing votes to the Tories, and that's that. But what I will say, in the general sphere of the way people that view politics, it looks like a good thing. And whilst it might be inviting and all that sort of stuff, these are really small endeavours. Whilst I don't think they're talking about the real larger issues. Personally, that's my take.
Right, I don't trust any of the mainstream politicians, but as I've already said 100 times, is that Farage, George Gallo, all these people getting involved is good for me. I don't care about anyone else because I'm running in local elections. I don't care about the member of parliament seat. I'm running in local elections. What's happening now is good for me, so I don't care, me. And I want to just give a bit of a brief. Obviously, talking to other people who are running, we've got the English Constitution Party running in Chorley, which is a Speaker's constituency.
The anti-British ECP.
Yeah. Pat. I'm not talking about what the pros or anything. I'm just talking about why they're running in that position is because
anti-what?
Mainstream parties such as Labour and Conservative don't run against the area where the Speaker is. And I'm just giving you a fact, guys. I don't care if Pat don't like Graham Moore or anything. He's been a good friend to me over the past few years. I don't care about his party. I do understand the Constitution and stuff like that. I don't care what they're doing. I'm just focused on us. But he's running in Chorley. And there is other British Democrats that are running here and there. I think Steve Laws is doing for whoever, the English Democrats. So more people are coming forward to stand up, and that's what we want. When it's our time, we will run for a member of parliament seat. When it's our time, but it's not our time yet. We know that. But we will run. But everybody, doesn't matter which party, even if it's the Islam party, people need to run in elections. The sooner we can break up all these votes and the mainstream parties, I'm sure that proportional voting will come first before anything else. And
yeah, well, John, I actually totally agree. Anything we can do at the present situation to break up the left and right dichotomy, the two-party system that evidently work together, is a good endeavour. So the more independent parties that do come together, whilst they might have quarrels with each other, you do need to support them in their plight because they're being third positionists and they're actually opposing the current system. And I do think that endeavour is good and moral. So that much I will support.
Well, at the end of the day, it's an exciting time, and I'm very happy that there's been a big shift in the political landscape. And I do hope Reform do well and beat the Tories. That's what I want. But I don't support Farage because at the end of the day, myself, John Lawrence, and Paul Rimmer can't seize the moment of the Reform surge because we're not allowed to join the surge. This is my point I'm making.
Yeah, but I'm in this part. I'm there. I'm interacting with Reform members. I'm interacting with Reform activists.
Yeah, but you're officially excluded. If you're seen talking to any of them, they'll get sacked from Reform, and this is just a disgrace.
No, it's only candidates that get sacked. They don't resact activists. But the thing is, it's not controllable. Once the people's movement really takes off, it's not controllable. I mean, they thought once they stabbed Trump in 2020. That the MAGA army would just disintegrate. It reconfigurated and it came back again. Now Trump has been given an opportunity to stand again. It's like when he broke up the Front National, the end of Jean-Marie Le Pen. He thought that was the end of them, but it reconfigurated. But the important thing is to mobilise the people. These institutions, I mean, Reform's really a brand new party under Nigel Farage. The National Rally is restructured. I mean, in France, incredible things are happening. Just as the Conservative Party here is in meltdown, in France, the Conservative Party, the La République de Gaullist, they've now split. Half have gone with Marine Le Pen, half of them are staying independent. So they're no longer a block to Marine Le Pen actually getting into power. On the other side of Marine Le Pen, on the far right, you've got what was her name? Marion Le Pen, Nice. She was with Zemmour. She was with the far right. She's now split from them and come back to Marine Le Pen. So the whole thing is in flux. But what's important is that we're seizing the moment and we're setting the agenda. They wanted to make this a cakewalk for the Labour Party, the globalist agenda. Don't mention immigration. Focus on bogus issues like global warming. They Farage has come in and he's threw a spike in their wheels. This is the big.
Well, can I just?
Go on,
What
Steve.
if I just say quickly, Paul? Yeah, just very quickly. I actually think the reason for the uprising very recently in Europe is actually, you know, when you've seen things from like the AfD and stuff. I actually think that's because politics is largely reactionary, right? And very recently, a few months ago, Germany actually decriminalised the most heinous thing in the world, CP, right? And they all voted for it in their parliament. Yeah,
CP?
so
What's it decriminalised again? What?
So Germany, look this up, right? A couple of months ago, they just decriminalised. I don't know if I don't want to say it because it might get banned on the stream or whatever. But they've just decriminalised child graphic sexual images, right? So meaning that yeah. So they've decriminalised it, and the excuse that the government gave was that they didn't want to make it a federal like a felony if teenagers send images to each other and it accidentally gets on a teacher's phone or something, which is absolutely wild, personally. Now, the uproar in Germany and the reason they've gone so right is because of that policy, and it's trickled out to lots of other European nations, and that's why the rise is rising because of policies like that all around Europe. So it's all reactionary, this stuff in Europe, I think.
Well, don't forget, we're being invaded. The level of immigration now is at record levels. It just goes on and on. Where people are now realising, and they're using this term openly now, that we're being replaced. We have to stop immigration, and it's happening at such a speed now. It's bankrupting the economy. It's tied into the recession.
Let me ask you a quick question, Paul. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Reform, they done a press conference in the last couple of days, and they said their 6-point plan, and I haven't looked into it, but they said they're going to freeze immigration. Do you know any more detail on that? Because before, as we know, Reform were pro-immigration. They wanted more refugees into the country, but have they changed? Have they gone a bit harder on their immigration policy, Paul?
Well, they've had the opportunity to do that, but the thing is, what they're saying is that at the moment, 1.2 million people come into Britain, 600,000 leave, because a lot of them are students who don't stay for more than 2 years.
Let me rephrase it. So before they said they kept going on about net zero immigration. That basically means 400,000 can leave and 400,000 can come in. But now they've changed their terminology and they're saying they're going to freeze immigration. Did you hear any difference? Was it different than the net zero?
But it seems to be two issues that they were mentioning. One is that obviously they're going to allow people to come here for education to continue, but not bring their dependents. Now, something like 400,000 people every year come into Britain just for education. And they're also going to allow a certain number of people to come in who are genuine skilled workers. But the problem with this skilled workers is they all turn out to be people who work in curry houses and things like that. And the skill is just like cooking curries, you know. But I think basically they're saying they're going to clamp. Reform, as I say, it's a young party, but it's having to face real issues. And the real issue is this: we can no longer even afford immigration. Our system is broke. I mean, Reform are using this language, broken Britain. Our system is broke now. We need to be radical. And that's why you see, when I was in the UK for a year, they didn't like using the expression, the radical right. Now they're using that term all the time. The language is changing because we're in a much more desperate situation now. It's gone on for so long. The Establishment Party have got no answers. Labour, if they win this election, which I hope they don't, because I don't see a groundswell for Labour. I mean, I'm in Liverpool, a Labour hot stronghold, and nobody is even mentioning Labour. No one's interested in them. I mean, they'll probably win because they've got postal votes already structured anyway. But there's no enthusiasm for Keir Starmer. He's got no personality. And this, again, is an opportunity for populists to come in. Nigel Farage is a populist, but I think under the surface, he's much more patriotic and nationalistic than he makes out. And
yeah, but I think the problem is, Paul. I think the problem is, Paul. Would you not agree, being someone from Liverpool, Do you not think voting, especially around that area, is not sort of based on nepotism and what your parents vote for and what your grandfathers voted for and all that sort of stuff? Because it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that Liverpool has always been a very sort of liberal area, and they all sort of vote based on what their family vote for. Is that right or no?
Well, up to Harold Wilson in 1966, Liverpool was a Tory city. In June 1979, Margaret Thatcher actually won Liverpool in the European election. So 1979, how long ago is that? 21, 40, 45 years ago, Margaret Thatcher won the election in Liverpool. Things can change very quickly. Labour took a stranglehold on Liverpool and they got control of all the institutions. This is the problem with the left. They control the institutions and they've used that to limit our freedom and take control and to dominate. Labour now manage Liverpool. There's no real election because of the postal vote. I mean, I know people who stood for UKIP, for the BNP, for other parties, and got nearly 1,000 votes in local elections, but they never won because Labour had 1,200 postal votes in place. I mean, we need to abolish the postal vote, although we need to use it while it's still there out there. But in fact, it stops real elections taking place. Now,
let me interrupt. Thank you, everyone in the chat. We've got 311 people on, 284 are on X. That's really good. Thank you very much, X. Reform now, it's a contract, not a manifesto. It's called a contract. Imagine smart immigration, not mass immigration. All non-essential immigration frozen to boost wages, protect public services, end the housing crisis and cut crime. Imagine no more small boats in the Channel. Illegal migrants come to the UK, be detained and deported, and if needed, migrants in small boats will be picked up back to France. It's on the so it's a contract now. They're not going to be doing manifestos. Decided on a contract, but that's what it says about immigration. Just going back to what Pat was saying to Paul. But thank you in the chat. We've nearly come up to an hour. A bit of a fucking sorry. Bit of a heated debate tonight, guys. Thank you very much. But I
love Paul and I love John and I love Steve and I love Jesus.
We've got to remember.
You all want the same thing. You all want to save our nation.
Yeah, and you know, like, let's not be angry at people. We can be negative, but let's not be angry at people because some people sound really angry towards certain people at certain times. I try not to be, but it is. You will see this within all the movements.
Now, what I want to say is this: bring on the revolution, because there's something we got to get together sooner or later. Because the revolution, and we are the revolution, guys. This is what we fought for. It's happening in real time.
I'm going to go back 4 years to what Pat said. Don't care about Farage reform or anything. He said things are going to change. I agreed with him. We started the party, and this is like 90 miles an hour, guys. This is 90 miles an hour. Things are changing. Things are changing. Like, in the ring, in the ring, we've got Gorgeous George. In the ring, we've got Farage. In the ring, we've got Ready to Rumble reform. You know what I mean? All going after them underdogs, Labour and Tories. Little Sunak in corner, little skin bean, you know what I mean? With Sadiq Khan as his side backup. You know what I mean? Honestly, Labour Party, Angela Rayner at the front, like that, holding the keys to her house that she robbed. You know what I mean? Or something like that. You know, we're going after them, guys, and they're going to get beaten in the corners. That's what they're going to do. They're going to get beaten. Labour might hold a majority, but they are losing votes by the hundreds, thousands.
Right, let me finish on this. So I always said, like John said, when we started the party, there's going to be massive political change within the next 3 years in this country. This election is the most dramatic election we've ever seen in a lifetime in this country. You know, there is obviously a reform surge happening, but what people need to remember is reform do not hold hardly any local seats, and I'll leave it with that.
Steve.
Steve, do you want a final word on the guest? Go on, Steve.
I think he's
sorry.
froze.
So my
What is up? Oh,
It's all right, John. It's all right. Go on, Steve. Yeah.
Good. So my final closing statement would be that whilst people might be frustrated about things in the past, I think what you have to look at most pertinently is the Overton window currently. What's best to make that progress? Not have subcultures the right each other. I definitely agree with and stuff like that.
Get in the fight, guys. 2.5 weeks to go. 2.5 weeks to the election.
Make sure
2 weeks on Thursday. That's all we've got left to stop the Labour majority. Don't vote for the Liberal outcome. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
What I would say is just think about a restoration of faith and the best thing for your country. And I'm not here to judge anyone because we all want the same outcome, don't we? We might just have different roads to get there. So I'll leave it there.
Cheers, Steve.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you to the chat. Thank you to the legendary hosts here on shore. Thank you, John Enoch, pal. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Mouse Nation and Mouse Trap. I think I did see you come on a couple of times, Callum, but you're banned. All right, get lost. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone in the chat. Rory, thank you. And it has been a good, lively chat tonight, but it's definitely been good. Thank you very much, everyone, and good night. Don't go yet, Steve.
Okay, I'm still here.